So what you're looking at doing there is you're looking at owning the bottom of the funnel. So your high intent keywords, your high converting keywords. I also find it's an easier way, not as much data at the moment with Performance Max and those type of campaigns. You can find it quicker which landing pages are working, which ad copies are working. And then from there, you essentially start into remarketing.
All right, welcome back everyone to the PPC Mastery Podcast. Today I am joined by another special guest, Mr. Aaron Young. He has the biggest YouTube channel on Google Ads, which I'm super jealous of. No, kidding, yeah. Of course. Super cool to have you on the channel, Aaron. Before we dive into your backstory and your bottom-up funnel approach, which is I think is going to be super valuable to people, I want to quickly ask you, what is something that you believe about Google Ads that most people would disagree with?
That trying to find advanced strategies are a complete waste of time.
And what's the context there?
Yeah, so for me, purely an advanced strategy. And what I talk about that is people diving through Reddit or YouTube or LinkedIn to try and find the latest secret hack. The reason why I got this is, especially with the YouTube channel, as you mentioned, someone will release a video and my inbox will be inundated of, what do you think about this secret strategy? Or what do you think about this advanced strategy? And for me, it all comes down to that you can't come up with one advanced strategy because every client is different. So for me, purely, if you were to look what is an advanced strategy, for me, an advanced strategy is the stacking of foundational truths about Google Ads, using it in the right way at the right time. And so for me, that's probably my big thing.
Yeah, awesome. I think also the reason that you are able to think about it in that sense shows your experience. So speaking of your experience, how did you get started in PPC, and where are you now in your career, Aaron? Feel free to introduce yourself.
Yeah, so my name's Aaron Young. People would know me from probably YouTube channel and Define Digital Academy, but my first Google Ads campaign was actually a campaign we ran for our own business. We had a villa resort that we started in Bali, and we put in the initial capital. We hired a marketing agency, and with all the promises, and we got 0 leads. And just the way that it was structured, we had a 12-month option to basically we had to get enough purchases in order to be able to secure the finalization of the project. So I thought, well, if it's going to be my money on the line, I'm going to try everything. So first we had 12 months to do it. After 3 months, we had absolutely nothing. And I mean like zero leads from this marketing agency, not even in spam leads. I would have accepted spam leads. We got nothing. So I started, a mate of mine had an e-commerce brand at the time, and he started talking to me about Google Ads. So we started that. And then because you've got the risk of losing, a little bit of money, every morning and every night after work, I was researching everything I could do about Google Ads. There wasn't really YouTube videos back then. It was more blogs and just purely looking at the data myself and looking at what was happening, very much just search campaign based. Fast forward, leads came in, we secured the project. Then when we actually ended up living in Bali for 4 years, and I was having a conversation with a hotel manager who was a larger hotel. And we worked out that he had a 50 villa resort. I had only 5 villas at that time, but our website was earning more gross revenue than his website because he was getting all of his bookings through agents. So it just started from there. We ended up getting, other clients and referrals. And then I discovered that I just really loved the Google Ads side of it. So since we moved back in 2016, I handed over the operation of the business. We still own it, still involved in the the marketing side of it. But yeah, then since then went and did white labeling to a lot of digital agencies as their head of digital. We're just about to start our own full service agency, and then COVID hit. And I had the time to sort of reflect, and I was going, hang on, we were probably earning more money than what the digital agency owners were earning. And then I really even fundamentally saw a bit of a gap in the market. And this isn't a negative towards digital agencies. There are some amazing agencies out there. But for a lot of small to medium businesses, if they've only got a small amount of money to spend, so, even sometimes after under $10,000 in their total marketing budget, the agency isn't a good fit for them. And I even truly believe for a lot of business owners, if you start, especially if you're a startup, if you can understand Google Ads yourself, before you pass it on to an agency, or before you bring your brand or your business is much better set up. So that's where Define Digital Academy came from. Our sled is probably, we've got a real focus on teaching business owners how to use Google Ads. Now, obviously, we've got a lot of Google Ads professionals in there and agency owners in there, but I guess I guess probably the passion of what really drives me is allowing business owners to take control of their own Google Ads campaigns.
Yeah, that's awesome, because you know the impact that it has on their lives.
Yeah, and the YouTube thing came out of the blue. Like you just mentioned, we've got the largest channel. We just crossed the line of 100,000, which is ridiculous. I literally, when we started it, I was looking at guys who had channels of like 15,000 and 20,000, going, that would just be ridiculous to get that many.
Nuts, yeah.
Yeah, so much to my daughter's disgust, the thumbnail's going to keep coming. And
yeah. Did you get the YouTube plaque yet?
I've ordered it.
Play button?
Yeah,
Nice.
it ordered it, and it should be coming
Awesome.
in the next week or two.
Nice. So I think you have an interesting background, because like if you look at, for me, my path, for example, I started off at an agency and kind of, started in this world that way. But for you, it's different. You really have that business owner perspective, because as you said, if your own money is on the line, you're going to be doing different things than when it's other people's money. So I can imagine that was a really good starting point for you to really learn like what is actually important here with Google Ads. Because when it's your own money, then you know how much it's going to hurt if it's not converting. So
yeah, and look, it definitely has framed, I guess, probably the way that I view Google Ads, and the way that I've always viewed Google Ads is, like other things, like the data you see inside of Google Ads is important, and you need to be able to look at it, and like your conversion data, you need to be able to trust it. But for me, what's happening inside of Google Ads is nowhere near as important as what's happening in the profit and loss sheet and the revenue of the business. And that's why I've always questioned, whenever we take on an account, we try to really drive the business owner about, let me know what's happening in your business. And, so that I really know the changes we're making in Google Ads. I just don't want the Google Ads dashboard to give me amazing results. I want the business to have amazing results.
Yeah, I love that. All right. So recently you shared something about your approach to starting and then growing Google Ads accounts with your bottom-up funnel approach. And I think this is a really smart way of looking at Google Ads. Yeah. So could you explain what this approach is, what that looks like, and why it is so effective?
Yeah. So I'll explain, I guess, probably how I came to it, the process. And then the fine thing I just want to preface is that as I break down the strategy, if you've got an existing account, please don't just stop everything to start this. So we will have a bit of a discussion about if you've got a current Google Ads campaign and you wanted to try this strategy, how you would do that. So where it comes from is, I guess, probably two foundations. And what I'm talking about that is out of all the years of people coming to me for Google Ads, it's come down to two core questions. They can't get conversions, or they can't scale. And when you look at those two problems, especially when you look at people can't scale, that's where I think a lot of people go into the advanced strategy mode of trying to find new tricks. But if you break down scaling an account, you've only got two ways that you can scale an account. You either increase the spend on your current products or your current keyword terms, or you reach out to cold audiences. There's no other levers that you can pull. So the whole foundation of the bottom-up funnel probably does really come from me being a business owner, being a small business owner when I started, that profit is such a high commodity. So the bottom-up funnel is essentially you start with high intent. So search if it's lead generation, search and shopping if it's e-commerce. The great thing about this as well now, since last November, with Google changing the automatic priority to Performance Max, so shopping has now we're seeing an uptick in shopping. And then essentially, so what you're looking at doing there is you're looking at owning the bottom of the funnel. So your high intent keywords, your high converting keywords. I also find it's an easier way, not as much data at the moment with Performance Max and those type of campaigns. You can find it quicker which landing pages are working, which ad copies are working. And then from there, you essentially start into remarketing. But then once you can no longer scale your account through increasing your budgets, and the way that you find that out is if you add in a budget increase to your search or your shopping campaigns, or both, by 20%, and your CPC spikes by 30%, you can no longer profitably scale that campaign. So you then go up the funnel, and we will do that through a Performance Max campaign. I won't say dynamic search. We used to do dynamic search, but because that's leaving this year, or even potential video campaigns. But the key difference is here with Performance Max is the way that then we set Performance Max up is that we set it to only target new customers, have campaign-specific goals, which is highly important for lead generation businesses, which we'll talk about after, and then also add in your brand exclusions, so you're not hitting your branded. And then when you can no longer scale through Performance Max, you then add in some video campaigns. There are different options. You could add video at the start. You could also add in some demand gen. But that's essentially what happens. You start owning your own branded traffic, high conversion traffic. And then when you can no longer scale through budget increases, you start reaching out to corporate traffic.
Yeah. So it's actually the opposite of what the traditional see, think, do funnel looks like, where you try to raise top level awareness first and then get people to consider and then buy. Kind of flip it around and say, no, we want to start with the people that are the hottest, the warmest leads, and try to convert them first, right? Yeah.
Now, there is obviously, if you've got a product or service that no one knows about, you may have to add in top of the funnel before bottom of the funnel. So, but for the majority of businesses that are looking to advertise in Google Ads, there is some underlying high intent keyword traffic that we can target.
Yeah. So let's dissect that for a bit. So let's say, for example, you have a lead gen client. What does it look like from the beginning? What things do you look like to determine, okay, this is what I'm going to start with? You mentioned, like, for example, for a lead gen, you start with search campaign. How do you go and determine your, for example, high intent search keywords, etc.?
Yeah. So, I mean, that process is probably nothing different. Like, we would go through the same process of, you making sure you're structuring your ad groups correctly, single theme ad groups, good ad copy. The big difference for lead generation comes about in the conversion values. One thing, I don't know what your experience is, but one thing I found, Performance Max is really, really bad for lead generation when you're targeting form inquiries and phone calls. You generally see a spike, but they're just poor quality. So we now do not add in Performance Max for any lead gen campaigns until we've got offline conversion data feeding in. And that could be through a third-party tool like HubSpot or Salesforce or Zoho, or it could be a manual way that's done through Google Sheets and importing the data back into Google Ads. That then means that there's probably for lead gen, there's one extra setting that you need to be really careful of. And that's, so not only bidding for new customers, not only removing your brand exclusions, but having campaign specific goals. So in a lead gen Performance Max campaign, we only put in the offline conversion goals into the Performance Max campaign. And that then really stops the whole question of poor quality leads.
Right. Yeah, that's solid. Hey guys, real quick, if you like this episode, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss anything in the future, and feel free to share with a friend, colleague, or family member, because that's the only way we can grow this show. All right, back to the show. And then for e-com, it's a little bit different, obviously, because you have the shopping component.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
What we're finding with e-com, because we've now tested this in all brands, different sizes. What we're finding is that you spend more in Performance Max, but the conversions happen in shopping. And we've got one campaign where it's Performance Max is hitting a 3.2 ROAS with a conversion rate of about 2%. Our search is at 7% conversion rate, and our shopping is at 12% conversion rate. But the one thing I would note there is that it took the shopping kind of flat lines generally fine for about 3 or 4. Like, when I mean flat lines, it sits around the 3 to 4 or wherever that its natural rhythm hits for the campaign. When you add in Performance Max, nothing really changes for a good somewhere between 45 to 90 days, and then you start to see a really big spike. And what basically my theory is on this is that essentially, because what we're doing is we're removing. We're saying to Performance Max, we only want you to target new customers. So then when they come through in a remarketing list or doing a follow-up search, shopping, or display are the ones that are converting.
Right. And do you use any third-party attribution tools or backend systems to double check whether Performance Max is actually driving new customers, or do you just stick to the data inside of Google Ads?
Yeah. Okay. So it's different. So for lead gen, as I said, we very much we would generally, especially for larger accounts, we would generally recommend either a Zoho, Salesforce, or HubSpot, so that we can actually see the data in there. As well for that too, depending on the client, we've had some really interesting clients. There was one which was they could have anywhere from a sale could be anywhere from $5,000 to up to $500,000. So we built a conversion hierarchy where if it was a good lead, even if it didn't lead to a proposal but if their sales team marked it saying we want more leads like this, it would get a nominal value of, I think it was $5,000. If it got to the proposal, we would then feed in the proposal. And if it got to the sale, they would feed in the sale. So that really comes down to questioning the client. For e-com, as long as the business is happy with the conversion tracking, especially through Shopify, we don't usually use any other. Some clients do, but we just make sure as long as they're happy with the conversion values. But that probably also comes to, especially with e-com, I more really quiz the business owner more about MER and really looking at metrics of, if we increase 10% in Google Ads, are you seeing a 10% or higher increase in sales and revenue? Once we're happy with that, and sometimes it can take a little while to get right. Once we're happy with that, then we can move ahead and really start scaling.
Yeah, that makes sense. And how do you evaluate the success of your bottom up approach before you decide to scale further by adding, for example, a demand gen, video, etc.?
Yeah. So the first marker is really we put a lot of value on search impression share or click share. So what I'm looking at there is we're really looking at so when we will increase the scale, we'll generally only increase by 10 or 20%. And what we're really looking at is, are we seeing any spikes in CPC? So if the impression share is low, we're happy with the conversion metrics, we go, we're pretty confident. Like we'll talk to the client, we've got a high level of confidence. Like if we're under 20%, we go, look, we've got a lot of room here. It used to be, we could push it up to about 65, 70%. Now we are noticing there's some niches where even at like 45, 50%, we're starting to hit the CPC resistance. So I'd probably call it CPC resistance is the first thing that we really look at a marker where you can't increase any further because if you increase this in CPC, it's making it unprofitable. That's when we then move to the other metrics. And then from there, like as I said, the way I explained it was Performance Max and then up. For other brands, it's not Performance Max, it's video. It really comes back to we look at what's the makeup of the client. If they have a lot of really good video assets or things like that, we'll add them in at different times.
Yeah. And I thought about this since in Google Ads, we talked about it on your show as well, how important, for example, landing pages are.
Yeah.
Is that something that you do for your clients as well, or how does that generally work? Is that something that you discuss and then they do it themselves, or you do it? What does that work?
Yeah. So I one of the agencies I used to consult to, they had I've had him on my channel a couple of times. There's a company out of Australia called 𝗏𝗏, and they've run over 10,000 live user tests. So that was, and they've actually got 5 core data points that they work on for landing page, which is all about obviously your top of fold headline, your authority markers, your pricing, and your design. So we do work on that. Yeah. I now don't do it personally, but I do have some core KPIs that I look at inside of Google Ads, and they are that for e-commerce, if I'm seeing a conversion rate of under 3%, I'm taking a deeper dive. For lead gen, if I'm seeing a conversion rate of under 7%, I'm taking a deeper dive. Right. Now, it may not mean that there's something wrong, but it's just a warning sign for me.
And in terms of bidding, what does that look like in the bottom of funnel approach? Do you just go for smart bidding, or do you use a lot of manual bidding? What does that look like?
Yeah, for me, it really it really comes down to what the user is comfortable with. And that's why I really don't see it as a strategy. It's more of a framework and a process. Now, personally, this may change in the future, but at the moment when I'm starting, I still like to start on maximize clicks. And that's just purely because I like to move over to smart bidding as fast as possible. So generally with search and shopping, we'll start with max bidding. Although I have noticed with that example I gave before with the shopping account, shopping campaign at the bottom of the funnel, converting at 12%, it's still got a target ROAS of 100%. And the shopping and the ROAS has just been going up. So I haven't been game to touch it. Yes. Yeah, so we still use smart bidding. Obviously, with when we introduce Performance Max, I'll generally start maximize conversion value, and then start a target ROAS later down the track. And I'll use conversion value for both e-commerce and lead gen because we're only using Performance Max with a value leading in. So it doesn't. That's what I was kind of saying. It doesn't really restrict on the bidding side. It's more looking at now. The other thing from there as well is that you could have potentially multiple campaigns. So you could have different funnels, bottom-up funnels running in the same account based around services and based around product categories. The beauty of that is that you might have a product category that is a lot more profitable faster, and you can start stepping that up and scaling that up quicker than another one. Or you could have different seasonality concerns. So with seasonality, you might have, a time where you kind of pull down on some of that top of the funnel or middle of the funnel spending when you're out of season.
Yeah. And are there any, let's wrap this up here. Are there any other things that are important to consider with this approach, like maybe some challenges that you frequently encounter or just other things that we haven't discussed?
For me, it's still just very much just having the core thing is, I guess, going back to one of my first topics is really understanding how each campaign works. And so for me, because Google will very much push at the moment, like demand gen Performance Max remarkets. Now it does remarket, but if you really break down to how Performance Max works, it can go into the display network, it can go into all the other networks. If it picks you up on its radar, it's going to bid higher for you. So by having a separate display campaign with Performance Max targeting new customers only, we're seeing a lot lower CPCs on display and shopping because we're stopping that smart bidding from retargeting 4 or 5 touch points in someone's journey. We're breaking them out into different campaigns. So that would be the biggest thing. Is just really, I guess, before you dabble into this, it would be really having an understanding of how each campaign works and how each campaign type works, and having some experience with it so that you can then layer it together.
Yeah, solid. Yeah, we in our chat on your show, we also talked about the fundamentals. Yeah, I think you also agree that those are super important. I've heard you mention it a couple of times in this chat as well. What do you think are the most important fundamentals? That really go into the foundation of a good Google Ads campaign these days.
I still put a high price on click-through ratio. And I know that's probably not as popular now, but for me, that still talks relevancy. The other thing is as well is that Google is still driven by clicks. So there is fundamentally every platform, and I think that's why one of the reasons for why our YouTube channel has grown so quick as well is I treated my YouTube channel like I treated a Google Ads campaign, and try to look at what does YouTube want. So I go, what does Google want? When it comes to Google Ads, they want clicks. So if you can put a high price on your click-through ratio, you're always going to get. Now, it used to be, a lot more about your ad quality rank. Now there's other factors in there, but it definitely is still a big part. Then we move to conversion rates, and conversion rate. I'm really looking at what's happening with conversion rates. If we're not converting, why are we not converting it? And I look for the disconnect. Is it the targeting? Is it the ad copy? Or is it something on the landing page or the offer? And they're really the only 3 places that it can be. And then the last thing is so I probably put a higher value on search impression share than many other people would, because that talks to me about how I can scale. So for me, I always look at, with the metrics, what is the metrics telling me? And where do I need to optimize if my metrics are poor?
Yeah, nice one. Yeah, especially on search impression share. I was so happy when Google released search impression share data for Performance Max a couple months ago, because that was definitely one of the core reasons why you could still say that standard shopping had a big edge over Performance Max, because
Yeah.
without search impression share, you just don't really know if you're already hitting that ceiling or not. Then if you push harder and you're already at 90% impression share, then you know your CPC is just gonna go through the roof. So I was super happy that Google gave us that data, which is awesome. All right, so Aaron, I think this was really valuable. The bottom up funnel approach, I think, is gonna give a lot of people a framework to use, especially from the beginning on, how you can drive results. I guess this would also work on a limited budget, because you're focused on the things that are much more likely to get a conversion. So that's awesome. I was just going to say one real quick thing, and that would be the warning I gave at the start, is if you've got a current account going, don't just change it over. If you did want to try this in, essentially, if you're on a very Performance Max heavy account, which a lot of people are, I would look by starting to introduce search and shopping. So you introduce to the bottom of the funnel, so you don't mess with what is happening at the top. Introduce the bottom, and then you can start going up further from there. Yeah, that's good. And I think that goes for everything you read online or any strategy you come across. Just always use your brain. I think, is this relevant for me at this time?
Don't blow up an account. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah. Especially if it's already working with, smart bidding is super fickle, and you can really harm your performance with small changes, let alone big structural changes. So what I want to do now, Aaron, is just transition into a few rapid fire questions. Feel free to just shoot an answer, one word answer, or give a little bit more context as you please. The first one is broad match. Is it good or is it bad?
Good.
Nice. Would you prefer standard shopping campaigns or Performance Max campaigns for ecom?
Up until November last year, I would have said if I could only choose one, Performance Max, but now I've switched back to shopping.
Because of the prioritization?
Yeah.
Solid. Any other reasons why you prefer standard shopping over PMax?
I just think because it is shopping in high intent, you can move that way. You've still got also you still get better data endpoints from what you get without Performance Max. I still love Performance Max, but if you were to give me one and you're an e-commerce brand, if you only had to do one, I would do shopping.
Solid. All right, this is whether you prefer for your client portfolio, lead gen or e-commerce.
Ooh. It's hard because I started in lead gen, but I really do like e-commerce. But then I like both. So, but if you're giving me to say one way, I would say e-com.
Nice. That's the challenge of e-commerce is nice, but I also think that the simplicity of lead gen is also quite nice, much more straightforward. Even though you have like backend and offline conversions, etc. I think feed management and generally low conversion rates on product pages makes it challenging for e-com.
Lead gen's one of those ones that in theory it's simpler, but it's really, really technical now with the offline conversions. So lead gen without offline conversions is a complete nightmare now. True. So that's but once you get that, it is a lot easier in terms of structure. Generally less campaigns, and you can scale a lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, if you look at where your impact is with Google Ads inside the interface, outside, I think with lead gen especially, it's even more skewed towards what you do outside of it. Also with the
And the hard thing in Google Ads management as well is you can get those clients every now and then when you say, we had a client where they go, oh, the lead quality is bad, but they had a call recording. And then when we played back the call recording to them, we're going, these are like perfect clients for you, but your sales staff are being rude to them. And they changed the sales staff, exact same settings in the campaign, and it completely changed over. So there are some other factors you need to think about with lead gen.
Absolutely. What is your favorite PPC tool at the moment?
I would say I still love Mike Rowe's Performance Max script.
Yeah, definitely one of the best. Okay, next one. Do you think Google is going to lose more market share in the next couple of months or years?
No, but I think the market share that it holds will be different, and I think there'll be a lot more higher slant towards YouTube.
Nice. Do you think Google is going to remove keyword match types this year?
No. And
Ever?
part of the I don't think they ever will completely. I think it'll drastically change. I could see a world where phrase match is gone. I still think there are some large industries that need exact match. I don't know if you've ever dealt with anything in Australia. Different countries have different regulations, but anything to do with superannuation, insurance, even supplements is really, really highly regulated. I remember there's been quite a few campaigns where I'm not dealing with the brand manager, I'm dealing with the lawyer about what we can say and what we can't say. So I think there is still a real need for that. And then some of these brands are spending millions of dollars. So I don't think Google will lose that. But I think for me, I've been on the record to say that phrase match is already dead. But Google will push search max more and more.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, cool. So I have one final question for you, Aaron. If you had to give PPC experts, whether they are experienced or beginners, one tip that could improve their career, what would that be?
Yeah, I'd say regardless of, once you've been in the career for 2 years or more, so 2 years, 10 years plus, I would say start teaching. Now, that doesn't need to be in LinkedIn, doesn't need to be in YouTube. It could even be like a mentor role inside of your own company. I just think the more you teach, the more you get a real core understanding of how Google Ads works. So that would be, and the other side too that I really find about it is that, before I started 𝗵𝗲 Digital Academy, I'd been in the industry for doing Google Ads for like 10, 11 years. And I still enjoyed it, but it was just getting a bit draining. Whereas, doing what I'm doing now has just given me a new lease on my Google Ads life. And I really have fallen back in love with the platform.
Awesome. Yeah, there's a quote from 𝗵𝗲 that I've always remembered. He said, "Teacher learns most." And you definitely see it with in Google Ads. I noticed it in my career as well. The moment I started to create content, and as you said, it can also be internally. The moment I started to create content was when I was forced to think about it on a deeper level. If you try to explain something to someone, then your thinking process becomes much clearer. You discover the gaps in your own knowledge. And I think that's a really great tip.
And I think of someone like who I know that you are as well. I take really seriously what I put out there into the ecosphere of LinkedIn and YouTube. So because I do know that people do reach out, which I'm sure you've had too, like, this bit of teaching saved my business or saved my campaign. So it really makes you really think about it and probably even test it more before you release it. So like, for example, the bottom up funnel that we just spoke about, I was using that over 12 months ago, but I just wasn't prepared to share it until I'd really, really tested it through in a lot of different test cases.
Awesome. Well, Aaron, thanks so much for coming on. Where can people connect with you? Definitely subscribe to your YouTube channel. Is it just called Aaron Young?
It's Aaron Young or 𝗵𝗲 Digital Academy, but just Aaron Young. If not, just look for the silly thumbnails. And also on LinkedIn, and then also 𝗵𝗲𝗇𝗏𝗇𝐷igitalaCademy.com.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This was awesome. And for everyone else, thank you for listening, watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, all this stuff, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Peace. All right. That's the end of this episode of the PPC Mastery Podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you don't want to miss any future episodes, we're going to be back next week. Then don't forget to subscribe and share with a friend, family member, or a colleague, because that's the only way we can grow this show. Now, there's 2 more things I want to share with you. If you want to take your Google Ads game to the next level, the first one is, if you want to get advanced Google Ads tips delivered straight into your inbox on Mondays and Fridays, head over to ppcmastery.com/newsletter to subscribe to our newsletter called the PPC Edge. And next to that, if you want to really, really, really take your skills to the next level and become the best Google Ads specialist you can possibly be, then consider joining the PPC Hub, which is our coaching and community platform for experienced Google Ads specialists. You can find everything about it on ppcmastery.com/hub. And with that said, I'll catch you in next week's episode. Peace.